Hey, this is Angel, the paranormal mystic, and I will kind of do the normal drill of please like and sub and comment if any of this resonates with you. I really wanted to do some videos other than this one. Uh, I really want to do a video on how I actually knew when I conceived both of my children, and that was pretty wild. And I also want to do one on sleeping paralysis and how I noticed I had a lot more attacks in astral and sleeping paralysis when I was partnered up with, bad guys, right? When you karmically intertwined with someone who has, I guess, demons attached to them. And I really want to do one on Pluto in the 12th house because the amount of insults and really cold hearted, cruel things that astrologers say about Pluto 12th house people is kind of abusive. It's pretty bad. But this one really moved me because it's something that has completely lifted a huge weight off of me. And that is why you could be chronically sick. And it could be because you are consistently trying to transmute other people's karma for them. Now, I will go over a little Pluto 12th house energy at the end of this video, but I know there are so many people who do this that don't have that in their natal chart. There's so many things in your natal chart, your personality, your upbringing, your karmic soul ties that can cause this to happen. And we know that chronic illness has many sources in the physical world. There's viruses, bacteria, there's stress, there's toxic food and water. I mean, we could go on, right? And we also know that our bodies often start to tell us no. Our body will let us know when it's had enough. The problem is sometimes we end up in circumstances where we can't get out and our body is saying no on repeat and we're not listening to it or we can't. And if you have managed to survive a really bad situation and yet you still find yourself very, very sick years afterwards, or if this is a pattern, because I had really healed so well. I would say about 2019, beginning of 2000. I was probably the healthiest I had been since I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And that was something I didn't want to be diagnosed with because I felt like it was doctors' way of giving up on me. Really didn't want it. At the time, I had swollen lymph nodes and a fever for 2 years. And that started at the end of 2013. And, the closest we suspected was Epstein-Barr virus because my antibodies had been active within a few weeks of when I initially got sick. And so it really knocked me down. And it was at the same time I was disappointed over other circumstances, like my son being sick and having to be pulled out of school for the same illness. He had missed, like, Texas was very strict. They can't have more than 5 excused absences a year there, which is unreal. And I had been told by teachers they get paid per student per day. So they're pretty ruthless. Now, um, this is something that when it finally clicked, it's almost like this. Those of us who are transmuters, we know this. We've known this, but yet it had to click just right for me. And how this began was I have been working on my metaphysical classes. And in these classes, they're teaching me how to kind of like neutralize or overcome bad karma because we all have bad karma. We've all done bad things in this life or past lives, and it can carry with us. And as I was working on that, I realized, why do I feel such a heaviness that's not mine? Like, this is way too heavy for me. This is not just my karma. And you have a lot of people who just don't know any better. And they love to say, well, if you have a hard life in this life, you must have been really bad in a past life. But it just isn't true, because the soul is who the soul is. I know from one person who abused me, even though they had been abused before, they still want to take on the role of abuser. They just always will. They will never change. Every lifetime, they're going to abuse others. And then there's other people who always take in that impact and try to transmute it to try to save the world from said abusers. Now, it doesn't matter how you come in the world, you're going to have soul patterns and soul personality traits that stay with you, no matter how you come in, whether you come in rich, poor, whatever country, it doesn't matter. You are you, period. And so I feel like if I get into this, we first need to come clean about our society. And this is not just a modern societal problem. I know Charles Eisenstein has done some really great work on this, and he has done a lot of studying on this, anthropology and the likes, and shown that society throughout history has always attacked the victim. They literally want to sacrifice the victim. They hate the victim. And it is not even socially acceptable. It's not politically correct. It's not even allowed in the new modern toxic positivity community to claim that you were a victim, because that is talking negative. How dare you? Don't you ever call yourself a victim. You cannot do that, or you're pitying yourself and you want attention and you are copping out and making it an excuse to not live your life. On and on and on, right? Now, here's the problem is I always had a really hard time as a psychic intuitive of people always making excuses for their behavior and excuses for why we should only see the bright side of life in the meantime. And if we observe reality, there's something wrong with us. I love it when Christ has said, "Get thee behind me, Peter," because you have the things of man in your mind, not of God. If you are a psychic intuitive, you are going to just observe what is, not try to reword it to fit an agenda. And so sometimes we just know things that aren't good. Sometimes we know things that are bad. And so, what I want you guys to understand before we get going with this is the abuser victim dynamics. Now, we know that many abusive people have also been abused. We know that. Hurting people hurt people. But if any of you out there clicked on this because you are chronically sick and all you want to do is make the world a better place, and yet somehow you're too broken to do so, then this is for you, because I want you to ask yourself this question. I have noticed a pattern with all of the people who have literally abused me versus my own life. And that is because the act of abuse itself is them throwing their karma onto the victim because they don't want to process it. I really think that is the source and root of it. Anytime someone is attacked physically, verbally, psychologically, sexually, it's all the way of that person incapable, or not wanting to process their karma, probably from lifetimes of being abusive. So what they do is they throw it onto the victim and tell the victim, you take it. You're bad. You need to take this karma and deal with it. And how many of us have been groomed from very, very young ages to take it because we were told there's something wrong with us, and our parents were usually emotionally unavailable, and we were taught that, we didn't have the right to pass on the buck, but everyone had the right to pass it on to us. Now, it's more than just let's put it this way. When you see this pattern, you'll know this is not me like glorifying the victim and demonizing the abuser, because this is literal, okay? Do you notice that the abusers usually have excess energy, money, and a support circle, whereas victims seem to have no energy, no money, and no support circle? Now, don't forget, many abusers call themselves victims, but if you know, you know. How come abusers seem to have like so many unhealthy habits. They may drink way too much, smoke way too much, eat so much processed food, never get enough sleep. And yet somehow their blood pressure can be through the roof. And yet somehow they still have so much energy to keep going, to keep doing what they want to do. And yet, those of us who are chronically sick, who've taken on their karma, we somehow are unable to keep a crutch. And I hate how some people say, you'll use your illness as a crutch. And it's like, you can't even do that. It's not like it's comfortable. It's not like it's fun. Right? So you can't even try to smoke yourself to death or drink yourself to death or eat processed foods or anything, because nothing, it can be done in excess with you, because if you do a little bit too much of any of it, it just makes things worse and you're too weak and fragile to do it. And then how come the abuser can throw all their karma onto the victim and walk away and wash her hands like Pilate and think nothing of it, right? And then the victim, what do we do? Okay. And again, when I say victim abuser, let's not go to negative, positive, or pointing fingers. Let's just observe what is. I feel like this is very vital when you want to tune in to your psychic abilities, to your, intuitive processes. Just observe. Don't judge, okay? The victim is conditioned to take the blame and subconsciously agree to make soul contracts to carry the abuser's karma in an attempt to transmute it. Now, abusers will find new victims every and any time they are triggered to remember their karma. So if you're no longer available, or, they've worn you out and there's nothing left they can feed off of you, they'll find someone else and they're going to consistently throw their abuse on them. And it somehow they seem to have so much energy to keep going. Now, victims are unable to have energy to process their own karma and is often sought after by more abusers if they ever overcome the abuse from past abusers. So if you finally find yourself getting healthy and strong again, and then all of a sudden you have a new, predator come and taking their place, you never really get a chance to get on your own 2 feet long enough. Okay. Now, this is why we want to address this, because we don't want to repeat this pattern again, do we? Now, too much excess energy in the abuser, because they're not bothering to process their own karma, they're giving it to their victims. All that excess energy triggers them to want to feed their flesh more, to feed their demons more, to feed their addictions even more, and create even more bad karma. And so the cycle keeps going. And I do feel like, unlike a lot of people, if you listen to near death experiences, which I love, they think that no one will ever be judged and blah, blah, blah. And I agree and disagree. And what I really believe, because I do kind of mesh the teachings of Christ with my mysticism, even though I don't really like the Christian community. And why I say that is because I really do think that the Akashic records, that is like the book of life, okay? And I feel like if these people consistently refuse to process their own karma, there will be a time when they're just blotted out of the book of life. Our creator is so patient and so forgiving and gives them lifetime after lifetime after lifetime to process this shit, but they won't do it. And then the cycle for us is we're consistently disarmed and we're disabled so that we can't be the light workers we came here to be. We came here for a really good purpose, but not what evil wants for us. And I know there's one part I wanted to bring up. I have notes everywhere, so if I kind of get off, just give me a minute. I did want to say, okay, let's put it like this. Do you find yourself constantly feeling others out? And do you have background programs running where you are constantly scanning energy and trying to sense if you are angering someone or a group of people? Do you constantly feel the need to fix the situation? If they aren't satisfied, do you feel the need to send them energy to appease them, to comfort them, in hopes that they don't physically seek you out and lash out and verbally attack you? I really feel like we have these like background programs running all the time, and I'm having to catch myself do this. Like, for me, I would say since I have been working on this new healing journey, and also like kind of, sharing it with people so that I can do what I came here to do anyway, which is to be a light worker and a healer. Most people with Pluto 12th house are meant to be shamanic in their abilities to heal, and they go through so much darkness and pain in order to help other people. We are the great transmuters. We do transmute energy, but when you have a specific individuals who target us, it's all about them, and we don't get the opportunity to transmute what we're able to. We can't even transmute our own karma because we're so busy helping everyone else. And so I feel like there's like these programs in the back of my mind all the time. When I finally got really healthy in 2019, I think I had finally, maybe by 2018, I don't know, I had really successfully cut off one of those programs, and that was from my ex-husband that I had children with, because he was the typical narcissist in that, he was never happy. You need to go get groceries, but don't go spend money. And you need to get groceries, but don't leave the house. And you need to always look really, really pretty, but don't ever spend money on makeup. And I mean, I could go on and on. You know what I mean? The impossible task, like I say, the impossible quest. Like no matter what you do, you're wrong. And I know now that, I end up with people like that because I was in denial, I guess, over how destructive my own parents were. I always heard these narcissistic things about my ex, and everyone always had something in common, which they had at least one parent who was narcissistic too. And I was in so much denial over that because I wanted to see the best in my parents. I wanted to see the best in my husband. I wanted to see the best in everybody. And it took so long to break that programming in the back of my head where I feel like he's constantly there and not happy. Like this program of someone who's like, you're never doing it good enough. The house is never clean enough. You're never skinny enough. You're never pretty enough. You're never giving me enough attention. There's something wrong with you. Right. And it's like this program that's always running in the back of your head. And it doesn't have to be words, it's just that feeling. And so as I got rid of that, I really worked hard to cut cords with that person because it was like the evil ghost that never left. Right. And so I finally felt free. And so when this most recent person came along, and I had no chance to like recover because he pummeled me. Like, you know how cars have shocks, and like we have joints and we have bursa and all of these things in our body to help absorb shock, right? Well, this person pummeled me day in and day out and day in and day out and day in and day out with needs, mostly sexual needs. And it was like really hard because I have a history of being sexually abused since I was very young. And so, I mean, I never had the chance to break free. I couldn't even go to the bathroom and this person would follow me. I couldn't, I had no peace. Like it was a bad relationship. And what was so bad about it was like, it was one of those people that wore the perfect mask and they seemed so great. And then my parents, the great enablers, the ones who always blame the victim, were telling me to give him more. They were constantly like, you need to give him more. Don't be controlling. Don't ever tell him what to do. Always give him more, more, more. And I'm like, he's sucking my finances dry, my body, and my kids are miserable. And like, my dad's like, he's a great guy. You need to give him everything. Like, do everything for him. Like, you need to submit more. And it was just like, I can never talk to my parents about any abuse. The history I have with my parents is pretty like crazy because when I was molested when I was young, they were like, shut up and don't talk about it, and no, you can't have therapy. I begged for therapy. Mm-mm. And now I know because they didn't want CPS involved. And it's odd because now I know I have the legal right to sue them for that. I really do. I don't really have any proof because it happened so long ago, so I don't think I'd have a leg to stand on unless they actually confess to the truth, which can you guys think that they would? I doubt it. But I have the right to sue them for what they did. They destroyed my life. And then when I was raped at 19, my dad said, get over it. It happened to me once in high school. I'm fine. Get over it. And then my mom was like, well, what kind of thoughts are you thinking? Because this is why I hate toxic positivity, because everyone has based like the secret and law of attraction off of like Esther Hicks. And she got all that wasn't from her good old Abraham. Okay, guys, she got it from Amway. My parents were in Amway too. Okay, Amway is one of these toxic positive things, and she learned all of those skills and then took it and ran. And she even says, oh well, if you're raped, it's co-created, like the victim is just as guilty as the rapist. Oh god. And it's awful. My mom was like, well, what negative thoughts are you thinking? So maybe you made it happen. And I have consistently seen my parents laugh at rape victims and make fun of, there's no such thing as rape culture in their mind. Ha ha ha. That's a joke. The Me Too movement was a joke. And, I could go on. And then, when my first husband was like getting to be a drug addict, very abusive, he would like, they got off work at 3 and they would go to the strip club until 7 or something at night. And when they would come home, him and his brother, this was after I was raped, him and his brother wanted to move in on a duplex, and I had to take care of both of them and my nephew. And they were always doing meth, and I didn't know because they hid it from me. Like every so often they would do it around me and like, oh, this is like something you do on occasion. But I should have known. I was just so naive then. I mean, I was like, what, 19, 20? And I started to suspect they were doing drugs all the time because they were so aggressive, they were so violent. And it got to where my husband was, you know, raping me too. And I hate using these words because I know YouTube is going to like, they kind of ban this stuff. So, um, and I guess you should have like a trigger warning. I know I always forget to put that where it belongs, but if any of this stuff, if you can't handle it yet, maybe you should watch this when you're able. And because I really don't want to go over all of the stuff that happened to me, but I feel like I'm trying to set up something which is really important, which is I have authority to speak on this. I do feel like I have authority to eventually push for legislative changes because of how much abuse goes on and nobody does anything about it. Now, anyway, he was really violent. And when I called my parents, begged to come home, they were like, no, it's your bed. You deal with it. You lay in it. And so these were the same parents that were telling me to just tolerate this most recent person that never gave me a break from the sexual pressure. And don't forget that, Pluto 12th house, Pluto's the planet of like sex, power, and violence. And so a lot of dumb astrologers out there go about Pluto 12th house all kinds of wrong. Overall, that's wherever Pluto is in your chart is probably going to be like where you face trauma. So, anyway, what I'm getting at is I had broken down completely from this most recent person in my life. And it's really hard to heal this time. This is way harder. This is the hardest job I've ever done because my body is extremely bad off now. But I'm realizing something through this. And that is I have programs running in the back of my head right now of my parents. Like, you're selfish. You're not good enough. You didn't please your husband enough. You didn't give enough. It's all about you, Angel. It's like these selfish programs, like I feel like I've failed them. I feel like I failed. And so these programs are running in the back of my head all the time. And I have to acknowledge them and recognize them to dissipate them. I can't just keep trying to heal my body and not get rid of those programs. I always feel like there's something there trying to make me like stop caring about me and fix these angry people that I can't fix. Give to these angry people that I can't give to anymore. Um, I want to see, I'm so like, I don't want to forget some of my notes, but I know there was something I wanted to go back on my first page. Oh yeah, I did want to go over the fact that like our warfare really isn't with flesh and blood. It's not. And these spirits and principalities and powers of the air are influencing these people with really bad, heavy karmic baggage. Okay. And so imagine like you were the heart. Okay. And these spirits are using like these psychic arteries to pull all of this life from you and feed these karmically bad people to keep them doing what they want. Because if you notice, a lot of these people who are abusers, they do a lot of bad stuff to the kingdom of light. They do a lot of bad stuff to light workers. And somehow they've learned, whether they literally listen to voices in their head or it's unconscious, and they just do what they're told. They're like good little soldiers and worker bees for the kingdom of darkness. And so long as they keep doing what the kingdom of darkness wants them to do, they keep getting fed life essences of their victims. And there are probably many victims in their lifetime. And then they take that kind of oxygen deficient, that life deficient blood, and brings it back through spiritual veins into us. And we're taking on their toxicity day in and day out. It's like we're literally being attacked like by vampires, and it is really, really hard. Let's see. I think I've got everything from that first page. I just didn't want to forget stuff. I've already got some stuff covered from the other page where I had talked about kind of go out of order. I just do this. I kind of go with the flow here. Let's see. Oh, these people too that use you to take on their karma, they subconsciously want you to be their savior rather than forming a healthy relationship with their maker themselves. Most of these people, probably all of these people, if you haven't noticed, even if they claim to know God, okay, just forget about their talk, their speech. Look at the fruit. They typically like really, really have no relationship with their maker. They don't know how to have one. They're scared. They're running from their maker. And so, in a way, they make you their savior and they're trying to feed off of you. And let's see, their focus is on getting you to do what they want, and your focus is constantly doing damage control. We wear ourselves out and make ourselves sick because we are constantly doing damage control, trying to figure out how to appease them, trying to figure out how to make the beast not come out of them again, maybe how to figure out how to keep them from getting angry and lashing out at your children. And let's see, yeah, our body just doesn't have the energy for them. Our life force is being drained. They are like vampires. And let's see here. Sorry, I am looking at my notes. So if I sound all wonky, I'm trying to make sure I don't miss something. Yeah. Okay, I went over that. Let's see. Oh, this is really cool. And this might almost be like a side note, which I do want to let you guys know. I know this is long, but I'm actually going to go over some affirmations at the end too that I am using to kind of help like deprogram and reprogram. But this little lesson I learned was so amazing. I had posted a lesson on my like tarot channel and on my blog about I have prophetic dreams a lot. Like I dream things that happen. And I want to do videos on that sometime too. But like for big things like Katrina and 9/11. But I have over even little things, right? And I went over that and I noticed that like Sunday something kept trying to like get me upset. It was really weird. You ever notice how that happens? Like where it just seems like something keeps attacking you, and if you refuse to get upset, it just keeps on trying. And I was like, Lord, Spirit, what do you want me to do? I was like, I really don't feel like I don't want to give negative entities my energy by getting upset. And so it got really bad. It got to the point where while I'm trying to meditate, while I'm trying to work on my studies and stuff, my cats were all like acting like crazy nut jobs in the kitchen, and they knocked over a whole basket of eggs. And I mean, it was a lot of eggs, and it just had so much egg mess on the ground. It was a lot. It was an insane amount. And normally, because guys, I'm not perfect. I may sound like perfect when I'm talking on here because I'm talking from my higher self and I'm really trying to grow. But I'm like a former stoner, okay? I used to wear a spike collar and smoke Camel cigarettes and I curse like a sailor. I still probably can curse like a sailor when I'm in a mood, when I'm in a lot of pain, or if I have something to drink. So is I'm not perfect, but I just didn't want to go there, you know? I was like, Lord, I don't feel like being upset today. I refuse. And so I was like, what can I get good out of this? What can I learn from this? And so I'm cleaning up this mess and I thought about something really cool, which was, there's this like proverb. Yeah, I think it might be Proverb 30 or something. And it's not Solomon, it's some other person. And they were saying like they always pray that they are never so rich they forsake the Lord, but never be so poor that they disgrace his name. And I always loved that because that's all I've ever wanted, right? Because if you're so poor, you have to steal for food and stuff. You kind of, disgrace your maker and you don't want to go there. But you don't want to be so rich that you become selfish and egotistical and then also forget him. You just want your daily bread, right? And I was like, probably I need to start praying that when it comes to being attacked by the evil one, because we have this tendency to never want anything bad to happen to us. Like, don't ever send the evil one here. Don't ever let me struggle, which is silly, especially considering my natal chart. So I was like, that's it. I need to be praying, Lord, don't ever let me be so immune to the evil one's attacks that I forget your name, but don't ever let me be attacked so much that I disgrace your name, because I know we can get to where we're cursing up a storm because we're infuriated when we're attacked. And I don't want to feed that evil. I just don't. It's gotten enough from me trying to make me transmute everyone's bullshit, right? Now, let's see. Okay, yeah. I was going to go over some of the Pluto 12th house stuff. I really want to do a video on it. That's going to take if I want to do a good video on it, I'm going to have to do a lot of research because there's so many lies out there. But I do want to go over like some positive affirmations that I'm saying to get myself out of this funk. And it's mostly because I know that you've got to reprogram the way your mind functions. So unlike a lot of really bad astrologers who don't know shit, say about Pluto 12th house people, those who are older and wiser know that we're meant to be healers, and that's why we go through trauma. And we are going to transmute negativity. And our job here is to help other people learn how to do it too. Because, see, here's the thing, I don't have the supernatural energy to transmute everyone's stuff for them. I just don't. I've killed myself trying over and over again, it seems. And I feel like we have got to learn that our job is to help other people learn how to transmute their own and how to give it back to others so they can transmute their own. And so I have these positive affirmations that I'm starting to say to myself. And what I do is I go into a meditative state. You can light a candle, stare at it for several minutes until you almost feel like the back of your mind like buzzing with electricity. When you get into this meditative state, you can actually revitalize yourself and re-energize yourself. And then close your eyes and meet your maker in your mind's eye and have communion with your maker. We don't need a church and a building. He's right here in us. Jesus told us that from the very get-go, by the way, that the kingdom is inside of us, okay? So we are the church. We are the bride, okay? So, what I want you to do is, if you do that, have positive affirmations that you want to say. And this is not about toxic positivity, nor is it about trying to attract or manifest, even though I do believe we are meant to be co-creators. And that's a big keyword, co-creators. We're never going to be able to go above and ahead or out of alignment with what our maker has already decided. There's only so much creating we can do within the lines of his decisions. And so we can create to an extent, right? But this is about reprogramming that subconscious mind, that subconscious illness of always taking on this heavy, heavy baggage of other people because somewhere you feel like you might be able to save them. And this is really important to say before I go into these affirmations, because this is something that was the heaviest part for me to learn to accept. And that is, you might think many times that you hate the people who abused you. You might think that they're scum, and you might try to work through resentment or hate or bitterness, which is what most people blame your chronic illness on. If you notice, in this world where people do want to blame and sacrifice the victim, if you're sick, it's your fault because you're bitter or you're unforgiving or you're not positive enough, right? Well, say you work on all of that and you really think you've got it down and you're like, I don't know if I can forgive anymore. I don't know if I can release anymore. Ask yourself, and guys, this is deep. Get really, really honest with yourself, okay? Even if you thought you hated your abusers, is there a part of you somewhere deep down, and this, some of you may cry if you really feel this, is there a part of you somewhere deep down that feels like pity for them, where they need saving, where that their future is bad, that if they keep on this path, they're destroying their eternal future, and you know it, and you feel it in the marrow of your bones. So some part of you, deep, deep in your subconscious, is trying to compensate for that, trying to save them. If I can just take on a little bit more of their karma and transmute it, maybe they'll do the right thing next time. Maybe they won't hurt anybody else. Maybe, just maybe, they'll make it. And I realized that as much as I actually thought that I hated the guy who hurt me so much recently, you realize that even if there's a level of some sort of hate or some sort of, like, I don't know how to explain it. I had heard someone say hate is a combination of anger and disgust. And I was like, then yeah, I could feel hate towards that person because very angry at what they did and very disgusted at what they did. But even when that emotion subsides and you get over it, when you really look at what happened, like, that they're running from their maker. That they're running from themselves. And it's like, quit carrying that for them. Like, stop it. Stop it now. You hear me? Stop, 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 stop. Okay. Now, here's the affirmations that I wrote down for myself that I'm going to be repeating to myself as I do my meditations every morning or sometimes every evening. And I have a lot of other things I say too, because we're trying to get that subconscious mind that's been programmed from a very young age to surrender to abuse, to take on other people's stuff. We have to change that programming. Let's see what this one says. Okay, I'm going to get it where it's closer to the mic or whatever. Okay, I am not responsible for carrying the karmic debt of my abusers. I give it back to them fully, completely, and without hate or malice. I am not saving them by carrying their karmic load. It is okay to let it go. It is not for me. Therefore, I don't have the strength to carry it. So long as I carry it for them, I stay sick. It is not for me. I fully accept accountability for my own karma and mine alone. I let go of all else, and I transmute my own karmic debt into love lessons so that I may shine and grow in health, wealth, and love. I can love others without triggering them to dump their karmic debts on me. I now call in people who also fully accept their own karmic debt, who can love me in a healthy and balanced way. Literally, when I did that, I could feel like my subconscious body getting the chills. Like, I literally have the chills all over me. And that is because there's that little inner child in there somewhere, that little subconscious mind that can't believe that that is true. Just can't believe it, right? And also sometimes, you can just sit with yourself. You have to tap yourself on your chest and say, you love me. You love me. Remind yourself that your maker loves you. Just say out loud, you love me. You love me. And do it over and over again until you feel anxiety ease, until you can calm yourself down. Because our body often carries a lot of anxiety in the heart and the throat when it's trying to be ready for the next time that you upset somebody. And you have to remind yourself that your maker loves you now for who you are. You don't have to do anything, you don't have to save anyone. And, I really debated on how I want to go about this with my future videos, because I don't want, to be dumping my personal abuse stories on other people. It's kind of like, I don't want my listeners to be like, my therapist or something. But I also know I have to establish like my authority. And that is one thing that a lot of people accuse 12th house people of doing, of running from authority or not knowing how to take it, because usually our power is taken from us very young. We usually have domineering parents who to make us afraid of having power. And I mean, even up to the last time I stayed the night with my parents' house, it's over a year now. I really had a hard time cutting ties with them, because some part of me wants to explain how I feel, but I know they won't listen, because the last few times I tried, the invalidation is just it's never ending. It's always like changing the subject or downplaying what he did to me. And I can't play their mind games at this time. I don't have the health for it. I have to focus on healing myself. And also, they would literally want to burn me at the stake for doing tarot and mysticism and things, because they think that's evil. And I think they're, covering up abuse when I was a child. I think that's evil. That's what evil is, and with them doing it now. But the reason why I want to kind of like go over certain things is I feel like there is this authority that I have been afraid to take. And like I was going to say, like the last time I was there with my parents, my dad was, I don't know why, but about once or so a year, he likes to like attack me and make me cry. And when I start crying, he just says more and more. And I almost can't even go there because I cry so much when he did it. But it's like you're so controlling, and he won't stop saying that. You're just like me. You're so controlling. And it's like weird, because I know I get it now, but my whole life I believed him. And it was that, basically, that Pluto 12th house in action of someone trying to take my power from me. I've been taught very, very young that I'm too much and I need to shut up, be quiet, submit, do what you're told, be a good girl. You know what I mean? Always submit to that authority. And um I know I have a level of authority to take accountability for, and that is that with the abuse I've gone through, I have a lot of ground to stand on. I can not only help so many people in the more spiritual world and everything, but even in the physical world, like I could eventually write a book or a blog or something and go into detail and call all of these people out, every single one of them that harmed me or turned a blind eye and pretended they didn't know what was happening. A lot of people have, like I said, could practically be sued. And I really would like to push for changes in legislature at some point. Um, Even though I'm not big on government anyway, it's like, if we're going to live under its evil tentacle reign, we may as well push for some positive changes for um, women and children. Like I wish I had had a safe place to go at the school. I was at a private school, which everyone actually surprisingly hated me there because of my abuser, because my abuser was 4 years older than me and had attended that school at one time and was so much trouble that everyone at that school also hated me. And my parents put me in there right around the time I was starting to get abused, so like I had no support. And I needed a safe place to run and ask for help, and I was so afraid of telling anyone. I was afraid of my father, and I needed that support then. And I also feel like there's too many women today who are abused, and there needs to be changes in legislature when it comes to spousal marital rape and abuse and that sort of thing. Really need to make some big changes on that, because it's out of hand. It really is kind of at epidemic proportions at this point, especially with violent, PORN on the internet so readily available. It kind of feeds into that lustful side of that beastie kind of addiction, evil part of them. It really does trigger like demonic activity. I will say that, when it comes to the Pluto 12th house, some people say that we can be easily drained, have a lot of nightmares, especially if it's in your ascendant like me. You're probably going to have a traumatic birth. I don't know I had a traumatic birth, but I do know that I did almost die and turn one in the hospital. And the same person on one article was like, oh, they need a lot of alone time and they're introverts. And the next minute they're like, oh, well, they obsess over needing company because they feel exiled. And I'm like, I obsess over having company. I haven't like had like company. I don't even know what it's like to have company. What is that? I don't even, I sure as F wouldn't obsess over it. Like I have too much healing I still have to do. Shite. And I hated how they said we use illness to avoid harsh realities. And oftentimes they bring up prostitution, which again, I am like, good God almighty, are you kidding me? I would tell people at Pluto 12th house, they're going to think I sold my body or something. I don't know. But what I really irked me is like them saying things like we use illness to avoid reality. And it's like, no, that never makes reality easier. Like I am so irritated right now that my body hurts and shakes all the time because I have so much to do and I'm pushing through it. It's not like I lay back and go, "Oh, well, I won't live today." If anyone faces harsh reality, it's us. The only problem with it is I do feel like we have to get clean. We have to get honest with certain people in our life that are no good for us that we ignore, like our parents and people. You have to get honest with yourself. You can't, like say, oh, I'm going to heal, but conveniently ignore this really unhealthy relationship over here. And I do think that's how I ended up attracting this last person. First off, it was just an easy target. He knew enough to know what to do. I mean, I had known him for many years and he came back around and, I will say that if you have been in a situation like mine and you have caught yourself repeatedly, getting your health back and then someone else coming in and stripping that from you, we do have to get honest with ourselves at some point and say, what is our role in this? And it's not about victim blaming. And it sure as hell is not like subscribing to what everyone else thinks about those of us who have been harmed. But we have to start digging deeper on why would we ever allow someone to do that? Like what made me allow this person to do that to me over and over again was because I had parents constantly whispering in my ear to give more. And you have to ask yourself, do you have people in your life that you have kept in your life who keep asking you to give more when you have nothing left to give? You just can't do that, guys. You have to learn to love yourself. And I thought that I did, but not enough. I am not the sacrificial lamb. I am not the martyr. I am not Jesus Christ. Okay? And I know I have a lot of healing to do. I will tell you that just with these affirmations I wrote down, understanding that I was trying to carry other people's karma for them and understanding these negative programs running in the back of my mind has lifted a huge weight off of me. But healing is a process. So it's going to take a lot of time for me to get rid of this. And it's going to be the same for you, depending on how deep your wounds are. But I do hope that I help some of you with this. And, if there's any part of it that's triggered you, I apologize. Sometimes it's hard for us to listen to videos that help us heal because it also triggers wounds too. And so if some of this was too hard, just take a break from it, from videos like this and just do a lot of self-care and a lot of positive affirmations, and a lot of soul healing. And I do love you. I bless you. Until next time.